The following presentation was made possible by the Altek Media Group, a Southern California multimedia company providing exponential branding and marketing services to all their clients. The Altek Media Group understands the value of the 3W strategy, providing their clients proven, trackable results. Let us make it easy for you to grow your business. Visit altekmedia.com.
Running a homeless prevention charity, it's a absolutely alarming number of single mothers with children, senior citizens, disabled, that are going homeless due to the lack of affordable housing. Is there any words of optimism or thoughts or suggestions of what we can do to address that problem?
No.
I thought that would be the answer.
No, that's not true. A month ago, I was in San Diego at state meetings, and we toured some affordable housing alternative projects down there. What they've done in San Diego and some other cities is difficult to reproduce here. Number one, they've done it in large vacant buildings. One of the buildings was a former school district site down there, which took up almost an entire city block in San Diego, which was no longer being utilized by the school district. They worked a partnership. They were able to add something like 700 affordable housing units in there. Another one was an old hotel, but mostly high-rise and large buildings. We don't have that here. So we need to look for other opportunities, and right now I know there's a number of local organizations that are working on the issue. Homelessness is not just a problem here, it's a problem across the county, it's a problem across the state. It's growing. In fact, it's growing across the country. We tend to see it more here because who wants to be homeless in Michigan in the winter? They'd just as soon catch a bus to California. So it is a growing problem. The economy obviously has an impact on that. We've got people who were moved out of their homes when the economy turned down in 2008, 2009, who have subsequently become homeless because, again, they can't afford to buy a home, and we haven't built enough homes to address that issue. So affordability, even apartment rents. I mean, if you've tried to rent an apartment or a condo, rents have continued to go up locally. So it's an issue, and all I can tell you is that our communities are grappling with that. I know the city's involved with that. The chamber's involved with that. There's a regional coalition that's trying to address the problem. But it's just a major issue right now, and I can't tell you that there's any immediate resolution coming down the pike on that, but that everybody's certainly aware of it, we're concerned about it, and we're working on it. So hope that helps.
Next question's over here.
Good morning. I recently saw a statistic that more young men and women are dying of opioid addiction than died in the Vietnam War. I know this seems like it's a problem for back east, but I'd like to get an update on the situation, and Captain Firms and maybe even Pat can address it at the local level with the opioid addiction.
Yeah, for sure. There was several years ago, we in law enforcement thought that opioids were kind of dead, after the 70s and early 80s, but it definitely has been on the increase. We do see it locally in Murrieta with heroin and with fentanyl. We're not seeing it as big of influences as they are in other communities, but we do have people working in task forces, narcotics task forces. We have task forces on the DEA level, at the feds level, and then also our local special enforcement team that are addressing those issues on opioid addiction, because it is a major issue across the country. So.
And just from the healthcare side, the California Hospital Association and the Hospital Association of Southern California have specifically targeted opioid addiction and additional education specifically for our ER physicians. So we've given them opportunities to obtain that training and given them protocols to try and follow, but it is continuing to get worse.
Hey, Gina, I got a question for you. Can you give more information, if it's rumor or fact, that the mortgage interest rate is going to be taken away as a deduction for homeowners?
In neither the House nor the Senate version of the current tax plan, mortgage interest deduction is still very much a part of the plan. The House version, one of the rewrites last week is they actually reduced it from $1 million to $500,000. That would be for purchases going forward. Anybody with a mortgage over that right now would be grandfathered in. So mortgage interest deduction is one of those third rail issues that nobody wants to touch because it really is foundational for the way we live for the most part, and has been for over 100 years, the mortgage interest deduction. The concern from the Realtor Association is that the mortgage interest deduction will remain in place, but with the doubling of your standard deduction from $12,000 to $24,000 or $6,000 to $12,000 for singles, that it will reduce the incentive for people to use that homeownership deduction, the mortgage interest deduction, and therefore it will discourage homeownership. I personally doubt that. We just had a presentation last week of, 83% of renters polled still want that American dream of homeownership. They want to become homeowners, and there was a list of 10 reasons why they wanted to become homeowners. Family, sense of community, better schools, better public safety. I mean, there's a list of the top 10 reasons why people wanted to become homeowners. Nowhere on that list was because I get a mortgage interest deduction. So people want to become homeowners for a variety of reasons, as we always have, insofar as we are able to afford it. But no, the mortgage interest deduction is not going away. Will there be less reliance? Possibly. But then again, if we're able to repatriate commercial dollars, corporate dollars from overseas, to actually increase job growth, increase wage growth in this country, and if your personal deduction goes from $6,000 to $12,000 or $12,000 to $24,000, you're going to be bringing home more money anyway, so you're going to have more money in your pocket, hopefully. The biggest impact, frankly, in California is not going to be for mortgage interest deduction. It's going to be elimination of the SALT, the state and local tax deduction, and possibly the capital gains. But state and local taxes, I got to tell you, again, having just come back from our national meetings, it's the biggest concern in California, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, New Jersey, states like us where we have 13.5% state income tax, because we've allowed our state legislators to continue to overburden us with taxes. The other 44, 45 states, like Texas and Florida, who have zero income tax, state income tax, number one, they don't care. Number two, they're not really sympathetic to our plight out here. And frankly, they're kind of glad that California's getting dinged. So it's a thorny issue. But yeah, mortgage interest is not going away. But the overall impact, I mean, you have to look at that and see what the final rewrite is going to be and what they ultimately come together on before we can make a decision on that.
Next question's over here.
Morning, I'm Scott Andrews with Commerce Bank, Temecula Valley. Gene, to your comments, we would love to see Dodd-Frank repealed. There is capital available. I think that all the bankers in the region would agree that we're willing to lend, and there is capital available. Maybe not lower lending standards, but certainly capital available. Scott, for you, I would just say, it being fairly new in town, seems like there's a lot of open space, and would certainly like to see development in industrial parks and other things. We have clients that are looking to expand their business. So if there's things on the city side that can be done to expedite that building approval and permit process, that would be good, because I believe there is capital available in the market. Thank you.
And if I can touch on that, when you do have end users who are looking to move up and find a larger building, it helps us to know as early as possible, because if we can bring multiple users together to one developer and say, look, you've already got a built project, that's going to make it go faster. So we appreciate any connections in that sense.
Next question's right here.
My question's for Mr. Brad Neat. Is there a concept within the medical industry that begins to tie premiums and coverage to personal responsibility?
Boy, that's a great question. No. But it also, I think there is an opportunity depending on how the business is insured. So if you're self-insured, then you can place some personal accountability on your own staff through premium increases if you're smoking, et cetera. But there's not enough of that to go around. And I don't know that the government's going to be able to, if you will, penalize. Is it the carrot or the stick? How do you incentivize someone to go get a test done unless you're going to pay for it? Because we don't think in terms of consumerism in healthcare. We do more now than we used to, but I don't see how you're going to be able to do that through continuing to not want to pay for it. And there's the basic premise is that we don't want to pay for some of those services, and we keep going for higher and higher deductibles. You know that what, Gene, you may be able to answer this one, but what the average consumer doesn't even have enough money saved up to pay off their credit cards, let alone go seek health care. So I think it's a tough road ahead.
Got another question back here.
Good morning. I have a question for the police department. With the early release program and the felonies reduced to misdemeanors, we as homeowners and business owners are concerned over the petty crimes that have turned into bigger crimes, and it's hard to protect ourselves. What is the department doing about that?
Well, the biggest part of what we're doing is education, because we don't have a lot of control over the law is what it is, and so a lot of those felonies are now misdemeanors, and like you said, and so a lot of ours is through crime prevention and through education and trying to help people for the cliche term is to harden the target basically to do that, and then also we're trying to do our part with regard to those misdemeanors. A lot of communities across the nation or across the state specifically are treating those misdemeanors like the old misdemeanors, and they're citing them out instead of taking them to jail. We try. It's in our policy actually that everyone who's arrested for one of those misdemeanors still gets booked, and so we're trying to make it as inconvenient as we can to commit crime in town, and so that's really the approach that we've taken. Is through education. And then also just through taking a hardline stance that we're not going to tolerate it to the best of our ability.
Next question's right here.
Good morning, Al Rubio with DCH Auto Group. More of a comment on incentivizing people to be healthy. Our employer, DCH Auto Group, Lithium Motors, pays each employee $200 to go get a physical. So guess where I'm going next week? Yeah, look, shopping money. We also charge a premium for smokers, and we've had great success with smoking cessation by somebody stops smoking and they get $50 back a month off of their monthly premium. We've added free gym memberships. We've started walking clubs. So we've encouraged our employees to be healthier, and obviously, that's good for everybody.
Yeah, that does work, and it pays off, but a lot of companies don't want to do it because it's a long-term approach. And if you've got high turnover, you're not going to see those results over a longer period of time, but that is the right way to go about trying to incentivize healthcare and healthier workforce.
Next question's back here.
Good morning, gentlemen. First of all, thank you very much for all the information, a lot of excellent information. My question's for Mr. Kelly. The slide specifically, the information you gave about the kind of the flat growth rate of students over the next 10 years or so, how does that kind of correlate to the increase in the overall population growth? How did you determine the kind of the flat growth rate, and what effect will that have on budgets?
We bring in demographers that help us with that information. One of the things that's important to remember is the school district boundaries do not match the city boundaries, and many of the residents at the north end of the city talk to our city about that and the school district about that quite often. Well, one of the examples that I give, if you've been in the region a long time, I was talking with a gentleman who lives on a cul-de-sac of 10 homes, and he was saying 15 years ago there were 20 kids on that cul-de-sac, and today there are 2 that go into the schools. And so you see this fluctuation of the population, and one of the things that I think is Murrieta is now in that cycle of we have experienced our first grown-up cycle of students cycling through. But with that time, you'll begin to see home sales happen, and then younger families coming in. But for the most part, we're seeing fewer and fewer kids per home. But with the little bit of growth that it will be occurring with some home projections over time, you'll continue to, for us, see a very, very stable population. With how that affects budgets is the number of students. We say if their seat is in the chair, that's how you get paid. And so we're expecting things to be pretty stable. From a budgetary standpoint, that's tough because the costs, like in many industries, rise faster than the revenue that comes in. And so in our years when we were spiking very quickly, it was easier to do some very innovative types of programs and approaches because there was a lot more revenue coming in than you needed at that point in time. Today we have to watch every dollar very carefully.
Got one last question back here.
With the legalization of marijuana coming up, how is this going to affect the school district, the police department, and really the health care as it goes, as it becomes legal? And kids already, I was in high school a long time ago, but it happens. But now with the legalization, how are we going to prevent or combat that, or I don't know, how are you guys going to address that?
When we talk about the opioid crisis, we are seeing that trickle down to the schools. The schools are a small microcosm of what's happening in society. And with some of the things that Rob was talking about in regards to what used to be a felony and is now a misdemeanor, that has just increased access and flow to our young people as well. The specific law of legalization for January 1st and how it impacts the school district specifically is zero change. There are ed code provisions and employee provisions and all sorts of things in place that do not change anything. It is still illegal to use, to be in possession if you are an employee or for students. Having said that, we expect just because society is changing, you're going to see a greater flow. And so, we have lots of programs where we try to go after that as best we can. Some are very proactive, and unfortunately some are very reactive. But our school resource program and Rob, help me out, I think there are 7 officers currently. There are 7 officers that jointly the school district and the city fund in order to have full-time officers on campuses. And it's for purposes of law enforcement, but 99% truly is prevention, relationship building, keeping an ear out for what we're hearing and trying to be proactive in taking care of that.
One last question.
For Scott, is Murrieta poised or pursuing any P3 public-private partnerships in terms of Old Town or downtown development or any other areas within the city?
Yeah, there have been discussions, and first of all, sorry I had to run away. I wear really cheap cologne, and I'm not used to the good stuff these guys are wearing, and so it caught me off guard. But yes, we're actually always open to looking for opportunities to partner with the private community. Now, since Murrieta doesn't own a lot of land, it's not always, a lot of times public-private partnership means we contribute land, you contribute the development. We don't own a lot of the land, so we have to look for other ways to do it.
Okay, thank you. Big round of applause for our panel. Thank you so much.
being a part of it today. We truly appreciate it.
The following presentation was made possible by the Altek Media Group, a Southern California multimedia company providing exponential branding and marketing services to all their clients. The Altek Media Group understands the value of the 3W strategy, providing their clients proven, trackable results. Let us make it easy for you to grow your business. Visit altekmedia.com.